Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we are joined by the Phil Fraser. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Afternoon, Pete. Nice to see you.
Yeah, indeed. Listen, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to have you on. You are you've a lot going on. So first of all, tell us who are you, where are you from, and what do you do?
Okay, so my name is Phil Fraser. I'm currently in Spain, but I'm normally based in Leeds, and I'm a business sounding board.
Break that down. What is a business sounding board, and why would we need such a thing?
Okay, so what is a business sounding board? It's a question I get asked quite a lot because it's not a sort of a standard job title. The simplest way to sort of put it in a box really is to say it's sort of I've positioned it as halfway between a business coach and a business mentor. And really what I'm there to do, I work with business owners to help them become a better business owner. Now, we've all heard the cliche, it's lonely at the top. And what I'm there to do is to basically stop that happening for business owners. You know, as a business owner and having been there and been through the whole business journey, a lot of the time it feels like you're sort of making up as you go along. And that's true. And that's acceptable. And it's true with a lot of business owners. And I felt it a lot of the time. And sometimes you get to the point where you go, do I go left or do I go right? I don't know. I'll go right. And I'm there really just to be able to, as a business owner, to be able to go, look, Phil, I've got this situation. I think this is the right route, or I think this is the right way to go. Can I just roll it past you? And that is not only in sort of negative situations like I've got a problem, but it's also in positive situations like I've got this opportunity, I'm not sure how to maximize it. And as a business owner, you've got issues that are usually sort of marketing, strategy, finance, staff, sales. They're normally the same sort of problems, irrelevant of where you are as a business owner. And often it's just that requirement to be able to sit down with somebody and say, can I just talk this through? You can't sit down with your sales manager and go, hey, Dave, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing here. Can you just help me? Because that's not going to go down really well, is it?
Well, it is that thing, isn't it? It's showing up with confidence, even if you don't know what you're doing. It's like, we're going to confidently go down this path until we're not.
Yeah. And as your team grows as a business owner, a number of things happen. And one of them being your skill. You have people who are better at stuff than you are. And that's great. And that's the way you should be building a business. But there's also, the team will come to you and go, hey, Phil, what are we doing next? Where are we going next? And, we're going this way. And then, it would be great to have somebody to sit and talk to and go, Phil, can I just talk you through this? And a lot of the time it is just talking. I don't give people answers. I don't give people solutions. I'm not a business consultant who will come into your business and go, right, your supply chain's wrong, your sales strategy is wrong, whatever it is. I talk to the business owner, and then the business owner takes hopefully some benefit from me and then inputs it into his role as a business owner.
That's super interesting. I mean, to give the audience a bit of a background here, I mean, you as you describe yourself, you went from a kitchen table startup with limited or no investment, and then through to a multi-million-pound sale 18 years later into to PLC, and really that sort of the journey that you've been on through that. And I just want to circle back a bit, because you sort of saying it's between a mentor and a coach, and then you talked about a consultant as well. So can you just split the hairs for us here between mentor, coach, and consultant, if you like, and the position that you sort of find yourself straddling?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I actually wrote a really long article about it on my website. And having said that, I'm still not sure what the answer is. But in very simple terms, and I use the football analogy. So if let's say you're 18-year-old and you're a striker and you're playing for a club's under 18 team or under 20 team. If you had Gary Lineker at your side, he would be a mentor. He'd be able to say, look, this is what happened to me. This is how my career expanded and went out and blah, 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 blah. But if you had, and I'm a Leeds fan, so I'll use Bielsa as my example. If you had Bielsa next to you, he would be able to coach you and make you better. So I think the difference between a coach and a mentor is somebody who's been there and can sort of hold your hand and sort of show you the path. Whereas I think a coach is somebody who will add to your skill set. And that's probably the simplest way. You know, you can get into all sorts of different nuances and different pointers, and you know, coaches will set targets, whereas mentors will just sort of give you tasks, sort of thing. So a coach will try and make you this bit better, this bit better, this bit better, whereas a mentor might just say, you know, come back to me in 6 months. Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done the other? It's there are nuances to it, and most coaches will mentor, and most mentors will coach. And I think that's where I try and sit my role, is somewhere in the middle. So there's a little bit of hand holding and there's a little bit of mentoring, and a lot of what I'm doing is actually not giving answers. I'm actually asking questions. So I'm the one who's prodding and poking and yeah, classic questions like, well, why'd you do that? Which is a horrible question. People hate being asked that question, because the answer is normally either, I don't know, or we've always done it like that, or we did it like that in my last company. But when somebody then takes a step back and thinks, yeah, why do we do it like that? And I can then say, well, have you thought about doing it this way or that way or that? And then they come up with the answer, you know, the client, the business owner comes up with the answer to say, do you know what? I'm going to do that differently next time. Now, I've not coached them. I've not told them the answer. They've come up with themselves. So, you know, it's a bit of in between. I think the consultant side of things is another step away. Whereas I think the consultant is somebody, and again, this is sort of very simplistic, comes in and sort of looks at your business in a particular area, wherever they're a consultant in, and will advise that, you know, this isn't working right, this strategy is wrong, this system doesn't work, this process isn't optimized, that sort of thing. So I don't think I'm comparable to a consultant. I'm sitting somewhere in the middle of a coach and a mentor. And I think also I picked the title Business Sounding Board partly out of a bit of imposter syndrome on my behalf. So, you know, as you said, I run my own business, we sold it, and then somebody said to me, somebody who is a sort of coach/consultant said to me, oh, you should be a coach and a mentor. My first response to that was, well, who on earth is going to listen to me? You know, I was making it up as I went along. And you forget all the stuff, you know, you as usual, you forget all the stuff you've learned, and you don't realize that people don't know this stuff because you've picked it up almost subconsciously along the way. So yes, that's a long answer to what's the difference between a coach and a mentor. As I say, there is a very long article on my website which discusses it, and I think you can get into minutiae as to what the difference is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of sense there. I'm curious, what's your style? I mean, we bring Phil into the room. You know, are you sort of let's go have a chat and a coffee and let's chat this through, or are we like let's get the drawing pens out or let's sort of delve into the reports? What are we getting with Phil? What's when you wheeled into the room?
I always start with clients with a very simple question, and that is, what does perfect look like in a year's time? Now, that might sound like a really, really simple question, and it is, but the answer then determines the strategy you're going to put in place for the next 12 months. Once you've sort of determined that, I can then work with a client and go, well, you know, you said let's take two really extreme examples as an answer to that question. On one side, you got, right, I want to sell the company. And the other side is I want to get to £1 million worth of sales. Now, once you've decided that, there are obviously certain things you would then put in place to get to that point. What I can then do is work with a business owner to help him ensure that he's keeping on track to keep those strategies in place. But my the usual start to like an ongoing, if I'm doing an ongoing sessions with clients is, okay, what do you want to talk about today? And they will say, I've got this issue with a member of staff, or sales have collapsed, I've got a problem, or I've got this brilliant idea, can we just talk about that? And it's very much led by the client. And I will listen, and then, as I said before, I will prod and poke. And the idea is, and I use the sort of example of, they're the expert in their business. They know their business inside out. I in many instances, I don't know anything about their business or their sector. But what they've got is a giant filing cabinet with all the stuff in it. And by me asking questions, they're flicking through the filing cabinet and they go, this is the answer to my question, to my issue. But I've sort of helped them flick through all those, this is old school, obviously. You can tell how old I am. This is old school, going through a filing cabinet and pulling out a file. Or, if you're, as you drill through folders in your computer and you get down to that subfolder that's got that document, you go, that's the document I need. It's that type of stuff. So in answer to that question, I'm very much led by the client, by the business owner who says, right, Phil, I want to talk to you about this today.
It comes across there, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost a facilitation, right? So the concept of the hypothesis is the answer is already within you. You just need the space, or you need the environment in which to allow it to be nurtured and come out. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's very, very good, actually. I don't think anybody said that back to me before. So thanks, Pete. I'll write that down. But it is, this is why I use the title sounding board, because that's what I'm doing. I'm bouncing things back to the client, and the client saying, what about this? And I go, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about the other? Oh, I didn't think about that. And I'm facilitating them either flicking through their filing cabinet or drilling down through their folders on their PC.
Oh, that's fascinating. Before we really get into it, I know we've already sort of delved in, but it's really, what does fire in the belly mean to you, Phil?
The fire in my belly was always, the driver for me was always success and to a degree acknowledgement. So success, and I've always said this from a business point of view, if you are successful, the money and the profit and all the upside will follow. It's very hard I think it's conceptually very hard to be successful and not make a decent business or a decent profit out of what you're doing. So success was the thing for me, was, we've nailed that. We've completed that. We won, over the period of 18 years, our business won 10 industry awards. And they were some of the, if I was back at home, I've still got them on the wall. They're still saying, that they were the things that acknowledged to me the success, but it's the success that's the driver. I think everything else falls out the back of that. And even what I'm doing now, just by somebody sort of ringing me up and saying, oh, I've seen an article by you, or I've seen you on LinkedIn, or I've heard a podcast, I'd like to talk to you about possibly working with you. That's a big yes for me. Almost irrelevant if they then subsequently say, do you know what, I don't think you're right for me. That's fine. So the fire in the belly, I think, is success, and off the back of that sort of acknowledgement, which obviously comes with success.
It's interesting because you talk about success and then you sort of said money and profits, and that will follow. So how do you define success then out of that?
I think hitting whatever target you set, whatever the goal is.
Okay.
If you get to that goal, that's success. Now I've got clients and I've got friends who are more money driven. They look at the numbers. I've never been like that. I've just said, right, okay, whether it be sort of redesigning the website or launching something or recreating something and sort of getting to that point where you go, nailed it. That's what drives me. That's the fire in the belly.
I mean, out of interest, are you a fixer? Are you a creator? You know, are you efficiency driver? I mean, where do you sit? I mean, do you prefer the blank page or solve a problem, or?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of classic entrepreneur, shiny new object, exciting new project type person.
Hmm.
And I think that and obviously within there is a creativity, and I'm very, very, I think, solution based. So, you know, it's a horrible sort of management / business cliche is, you know, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. And yeah, my wife's the other way. She's like, oh my God, this is a terrible problem. And my immediate thought process is, right, how do we fix it? So she'll fixate on the fact there's an issue. I'll fixate on what the solution is. And I think, you know, that sort of streak of creativity comes with that. Yeah, I think sort of entrepreneurial, solution-based creativity, I think they're all naturally sort of tied in together.
Almost a reverse dichotomy there, isn't there? You know, it's like, bring me your problems, I'll provide you solutions. You know, it's the
Yeah,
worst.
yeah, yeah. And to a degree, and actually think about it, to a degree, that's what I am doing, aren't I?
Hmm. Yeah, you're inviting problems, going, yeah, we can sort this, and we'll
Bring
smash.
on, bring on.
Yeah.
I heard a fantastic phrase from somebody a few months ago, actually sort of in the depths of the pandemic. And she said something like, what does this situation now allow to happen? Which is a great way of looking at problems.
Hmm.
You know, it just tips everything upside down. It's basically, it's basically saying, look, I can't control the uncontrollables, but I can control the controllables. What can I affect?
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that was great. That really pinged a light bulb in me.
There's an expression I once heard as well. It's that, you know, sometimes good doesn't happen so that great can. And it's in the similar context, right? You know, because you're
Yeah.
convinced, you know, now it's like, this is world ending stuff, right? You know, if we don't crack this, then we're, you know, the business is screwed, everything's screwed. But actually from this, and, you know, maybe it gives a bit on your business background, because you were saying that actually sort of almost, you know, you sort of backflipped into it by accident almost, right? You know, because it wasn't the natural, I'm going to start here and we're going to go in a straight line from A to B, and that's 18 years later, thanks very much, right? It's entrepreneurship, and your journey's been a bit different to that, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, and actually that phrase you just used was exactly what happened. You know, what we were aiming at, and obviously we'll come into the story later, but what we were aiming at didn't happen. And if it had happened, what did subsequently actually happen wouldn't have happened. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's perfect, right? You know, it's like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Maybe in the middle of a whole pile of crap, or maybe you're on top of your game, right? But all of that they're all factors and vectors that have allowed you to be exactly what you are today, which is huge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a failure that by accident triggered an opportunity.
So give us a little background to that, Phil. I mean, what was happening at the time, and you know, even and to your mental state, I suppose, and your energy levels that allowed you through that.
Yeah, so so this is back in 2000. I was working at William Hill, the sports book. I'd been recruited by them to launch what at the time was their first ever online casino. So it was their sort of first step out of the sports betting space, was into the online casino space. And while I was there, we came across the concept of online bingo, which was just happening in the US. So I was tasked with basically sort of investigating the market, finding out what the levers and pulleys were and what's going on, and eventually sort of put a report to the board as to, you know, if we were going to get into online bingo, how do we do it? What would we do? These sort of things. And they decided at the time that no, they weren't going to do it. Now, I subsequently left William Hill back end of that year and started work as a consultant in the online gaming space. And it was actually a friend of my brother's came to me and said, I want to get into online gaming. It's, you know, it's the new big thing that's going to be happening. Can you give me any advice? And I said, do you know, you want to get into online bingo? That's going to be the next big thing. 24, 48 hours later, I thought, hang on a minute, if you're telling him that's what he should be doing, why aren't you doing that? So long story short, I sort of dusted off this report I'd done for William Hill, rehashed it, and it became a pitch document for investment into what would have been the UK's first ever pay-to-play online bingo site. Okay, so I went out to the market, sort of real life Dragon's Den, and pitched for, I think we were after £250,000 to, as I say, to launch what would have been the UK's first ever pay-to-play online bingo site. Now, just to put this into some sort of historical landscape. So this was about the time the dot-com bubble was about to burst, or was bursting. This was only happening in the US, so there's nothing in the UK at all. So it's completely brand new to UK. It was also a legally grey area. So it wasn't illegal, but it wasn't legal. So I was going out pitching something that had never been in the UK, was legally grey, in the middle of the dot-com bubble bursting. As great timing, perfect timing. And unsurprisingly, it got nowhere with it. I took it to lots and lots of different people, didn't get any interest at all. But what I'd done is I'd built this very, very basic website, which listed all the, at the time, US online bingo sites that were in the market, to use it as a vehicle to, and on the front of it, we had a very simple pop-up questionnaire to get some player data, so sort of age, sex, demographics, spend, frequency, that type of thing. So that when I was doing my pitch, I sounded like I knew what I was talking about. And what happened was some of those bingo sites that were listed on my website somehow found this website and contacted me and said, can we advertise on your website? I was like, sure, send me some money and I'll put some ads on the website. Now, coincidentally, my career pre-William Hill, a lot of that was spent selling advertising space in magazines and newspapers. So this was like, okay, I sort of understand this conceptually. And that website became the business. So it started completely and utterly by accident. And as you said previously, came out of, something not good happening, allowed us to do this business that we wouldn't have done. Had I got the funding for, as I say, what would have been the UK's first pay-to-play bingo site, that business journey would have been completely different. How well or not we'd have done, I've no idea.
Wow. What was the funding for? Because was it down to the build? Was it,
it was just, it was, I mean, this is that document. I've still got the document, actually. It's at home. I've still got it. I think it was just for marketing. It was for staff. It was just operational. I mean, the way a lot of the online gaming market works is the sort of the engine, the thing that makes, whether it be sports betting, whether it be casino, whether it be poker, whether it be bingo, that's usually owned by a development company, and then it's white labeled and licensed by the brand. So what we would have been doing is, obviously we'd be paying a licensing fee to this bingo company in the US, and then we'd have marketed the product that we created.
It's a fascinating world, as you say, but I mean, God, all the sort of environmental and universal factors are against you, right? .com, and it's like everyone, all investors are going, this whole website thing. Nah, it's actually,
and the other, I mean, one of the key questions we were asked at the time was, if this is going to be so brilliant, why aren't Mecca and Gala doing it? Obviously, the two big bingo brands, and the obvious answer is, obviously a lot of big brands don't see what's happening on the ground. They don't see the new things that are happening, and they're too big to see them. They obviously went online 4 years later, so I was 4 years ahead of them. But yes, it was, landscape wise, it was it wasn't the best pitch.
But that's the thing, I suppose, when you don't even almost realize it's a different pitch to what you expected, right? Because
Yeah,
I mean, it's the old adage, was it, I don't know, Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix and sort of shoot them out of the room type thing,
yeah, yeah.
It's similar. It's just changing landscape, right? It's all changing and what was
That's right.
there.
Yeah.
But it's credit to you. So I mean, first of all, I mean, what did you initially want to do when you grew up, and what did you start off doing?
Okay, so when I wanted to grow up, I wanted to play football for Leeds United because that's all I was interested in, or be in a punk band. But I can't play any musical instruments, and I've got a terrible singing voice. So all of that, I'm still playing football, and I'm still listening to punk. So I left university with no idea what I wanted to do, and fell into accountancy because my parents said, accountancy, that's a good career. So I was a trainee accountant for a year, and when I handed in my notice to the managing partner, he said, very, very thoughtfully, he said, "I think you've made the right decision."
Compliment, insult?
Oh, not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, that year as a trainee accountant was quite good because it gave me an understanding of sort of basic bookkeeping and invoicing, and for those oldies amongst us, double entry bookkeeping and stuff like that.
I mean, it leads me on to generally a future question that more or less says, when is it a great time to get Phil in the room, and when's it a great time to get Phil out of the room? If it's a case
he noticed when the good time to get me out of the room was.
Yeah, if it's business as usual or not exciting, get Phil out because he'll start wrecking the place, right?
Yeah. It's I just wasn't. The really funny thing was, I started as a trainee at the same time as another guy called Philip. So there was two Philips started as a trainee, and I obviously just wasn't cut out for this. And the other Philip was just like Mr. Accountant. He's still an accountant now. So we had this huge contrast between me, just not an accountant, and this other Philip he's obviously a brilliant accountant. Oh, Philip's done this well. And I go, well, this Philip hasn't.
Philip versus Philip.
Yeah.
Where did the accountancy thing come from? Was that just?
It was just my parents. As I say, I came out of university with no idea what I wanted to do. I'd applied for various sort of university milk round jobs without any. When we talk about fire in the belly, it was just, I don't know, I just want a job. And they said, oh, you should be an accountant. And it so happened they had a friend who ran an accountancy firm who was the guy who gave me the job. So I don't know how much of it was a favor or not. And he was the one who said I'd made the right decision as well.
But again, sometimes good things don't happen, so the great can, right? It's all it's all factored out. I mean, were you generally running into school or running out of school? What was your direction of travel?
No, I was at school, sort of school and university. I sort of went through school and university without really touching the sides. I was just I didn't do particularly brilliantly at my A levels, but that was down to not lack of application more than anything else. Got a 2-2 at university, as I say, sort of without, no issues. I wasn't a brilliant student. I wasn't a dreadful student. I just, I think, O levels, A levels, university was sort of default expectation. So I sort of came at 21 was the first time, I suppose, looking back, was the first time I actually had to make a decision, because everything else was just assumed that that's what you would do.
In hindsight, was going to university the right thing for you, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was ready to go and really enjoyed it. It allows you all the flexibility to sort of express yourself at that age and find, a bit deep, but find yourself and all that sort of stuff. I know some people go to university, oh, it was a waste of 3 years. I had a fantastic time, really enjoyed it. And I think the other thing as well, particularly back then, maybe less so now, the jobs I was applying for or expecting to apply for I think it still happens a lot, is, you have to have a degree. So by not having a degree, and whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing is irrelevant. But if you look for a job and it says, must have, minimum 2 A levels and a degree, if you haven't got a degree, you can't apply for the job. So no, I wouldn't say there's any issue in going to uni. I really enjoyed it, and I think it was the right thing for me.
My father used to say this, it's like, it almost doesn't matter what your degree's in. The degree
Yep.
shows the ability to focus, concentrate, to persist, and ultimately then come out the far side, and the subject is virtually irrelevant, right? Because how often do people?
I used to say this with my team. I recruited in, I think, vast majority of the jobs I recruited in my team. I said, must have a university degree, not because of what they did in their degree, but as you say, it shows you have the ability to take on information, sort of regurgitate it, rebuild it, put it out again, understanding, and having been a bit grown up, and there is a difference between living at home and then living away for 3 years. There's even if it's just cooking and washing, it does change you as a person.
Yeah, it rounds the edges, as they say, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So when did the actual, in terms of really sort of starting that website and that, what was the gap then between then and coming out of university?
So I was 32 when we launched the business. So I had a 10, 11 year career with a proper job first, and then launched the business. As I say, the business launch was an accident. After the accountancy job, I then had a number of roles selling advertising space in magazines and newspapers. I did a year as a recruitment consultant. I ended up at Yellow Pages, if you remember Yellow Pages, and I hated that job. That was horrible. It really, really was horrible. So going out, well, it sounds a bit arrogant. It's not supposed to be arrogant. I mean, I was used to selling advertising over the phone or meeting people and face to face and all that sort of stuff. And Yellow Pages, you basically end up sort of, and this is no disrespect to anybody in any type of labour market, sort of sitting on upturned crates on building sites, trying to sell some builder, an ad for 250 quid in the Yellow Pages. It is so disheartening. It really, or meeting plumbers on the job. I'll be at number 46, Acacia Drive at 9:30. I'll meet you there. It's just, and having had 6 or 7 years selling advertising, it was just, it just pulled the life out of me. I just hated it. So after that, I sort of slightly swapped horses and spent 6 years at an ad agency, which was absolutely fantastic. And I absolutely loved that. And culturally, it was brilliant. I took an enormous amount of the company culture from there into my business. And that eventually led me into the William Hill role.
It's amazing. This is the various things you go through. And because you mentioned there, you'd sort of pulled together this business case, and and obviously there was that aspect. I mean, were you involved in, I suppose, in the technical side? Was it the technical, the application of, or was the business side, or what sort of skill sets were shining through?
I think for the when we did the original pitch, and then as I launched the business, it was very much the business side of things. As I said, my background was selling advertising space, and then as in the ad agency, I was the account manager, account director. So I'm the sort of coordinator between the creative, the copywriting, the technical, that type of thing. And I think that then carried on as a business owner, that I was the coordinator. Now I had a basic understanding of web design, I had a basic understanding of SEO, and obviously understood advertising. And those were the sort of key bits that rolled together to create the business. And then obviously, as I said, the sort of year as an accountant just gave me the basics of understanding sort of credit control and debt chasing and sending invoices and all that sort of thing. So all the things I did throughout my proper career before I launched the business sort of fed into and gave me a skill set to be able to run my own business.
How long into that did it sort of take you to realize that this was viable? This was a runner. This was a genuine business.
It was So the situation we were in when we were, as I say, so going back to where we were, we had various online bingo sites in the US contacting us and saying, can we advertise on your website? At the same time, I was still working as a consultant in online gaming, because still very much, it was still quite early days there. So having had a year's experience at William Hill, I was, I had the background to claim to be an expert. My wife at the time was still working as a teacher. So we had enough sort of home funding to be able to let this roll. However, I was still looking for what I would call a proper job. And I got offered a job at a digital agency as an account director. Very nice job, salary, car, all that sort of stuff. And I went in to see them on the Friday before the Monday and said, I can't take this job. I've got this thing that's happening that I have to see where it goes. And I think that was an enormous sliding doors moment. That was the one where I look back and think, I could quite easily have taken that job. It's a nice job, nice salary, absolutely fine. And I could have just parked what we were doing and just left it, or sort of kept it as a hobby sort of thing and let some money roll in. But I just thought the opportunity was there. And probably in hindsight, probably backed myself to get another job if it really didn't work. So I did have a bit of a safety net. And it was, maybe 18 months, 2 years in when I sort of stopped doing the consultancy, because that felt a bit too much like hard work. Whereas this website stuff was actually quite straightforward. Send us some money, we'll run some ads. Send us some more money, we'll run some more ads. And also we were very lucky that we were in a market that was growing. So there were new clients coming into the market all the time. And as we grew, we became almost, I'm not going to say a default place from to advertise, but one of a small number of places to advertise. So it quite quickly, we became known in the industry. We went to various industry events and all that sort of thing, and built along with the market growing as well. So that's why I say, sort of right place at the right time. But yeah, that was a huge sliding doors moment when we were like, okay, this might be a goer.
I mean, what sort of support did you have around you? I mean, for you to sort of say, very rational, very nice opportunity here. Yeah, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to go for high risk, unknown, wet finger in the air. Is that sort of in your blood? Is it in your family? Is it, or was it a case of just?
I mean, my mum was a teacher and ended up as a head teacher. My dad worked in universities, ended up as a vice chancellor. So there was nothing entrepreneurial on that side of the family. So there was, I think a late grandfather had a furrier business, but that's probably the only anything commercial I can find. So I have no idea where it came from. And the only support really I had was my wife, who said, yeah, let's go for it. This seems like fun. So she'd be sat, and this is going back a long time. She'd be sat with we had young kids at the time, sat with a baby on a knee, sending out emails by Outlook Express. At the time you could only send 50 at a time, and just sort of copying and pasting and all that sort of stuff. And it worked. Had she said, don't be so bloody stupid, take that job. We've got 2 young kids. What the hell do you think you're doing, messing around with this stupid idea? But she didn't. She said, yeah, let's go for it. And that was brilliant.
To have that support, or even, sometimes people haven't a clue what you're talking about it, but they, she's picking up on your passion or picking up on what's possible, right? And saying, well, sure, give it a whirl. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And she worked in the business for, sort of worked day to day in the business for 3 or 4 years, but was involved to the last day as well. She one of the things she did do, she was my sounding board, although slightly biased sometimes. And that, again, just going back to sounding board thing, if people are thinking of having a sounding board, you've got to think who that sounding board is, because sometimes if you've got a dog in the race, your advice might not be the right advice. But yeah, so she'd sit in staff interviews, she'd sit in on all the time. Team socials, she'd be there. We did a lot of international traveling. There's a lot of gaming conferences she came along to. So she was as well known on the circuit as I was.
Isn't that fabulous though? That, yeah, I mean, to have the support of each other is huge, right? You know,
Yeah.
so that you
Yeah.
can, you know, sort of, yeah, do it together. I mean, and that's key, because entrepreneurship, and as you said earlier on, you know, people sort of talk about it being lonely at the top, but it can also be lonely at home too, right? If,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you're sweating your pan in and trying to do everything, and the other half of your potential family partnerships going, I don't know what you're doing this for, and I don't see it, and I don't get it.
I've got somebody who I mentor who has exactly that situation. You know, he's got, and he's in the same sort of area. He's got this passion for this passion project he's got going, and doesn't have the support at home, and obviously he's finding that hugely difficult. So yeah, it's great. I mean, often she was the one saying, you know, that's a stupid idea. What the hell think you playing at? Because I'm the ideas one. She's the don't be so stupid. But it worked.
In terms of seeing, I mean, do you get to see ahead of yourself? I mean, do you know, what sort of drives you? Just get the sense that this could work, or do you actually sort of see it, that actually you can see things that others don't?
You know, I would never ever claim to have been this sort of futurologist that sort of was nailed on that this was going to be as massive as it became. I think with business, particularly when you start up a business, it sort of feeds into the sort of Maslow's hierarchy thing. You know, the first thing we wanted to do with this business was to be able to pay the bills. That was the aim. Then it's maybe we'll get a better car. Then it was, we might be able to go on holiday. And it goes, you know, and it builds like that. And so I know, you know, a lot of people will do business plans and have exit plans and all that sort of stuff. We had nothing like that. And because we hadn't had to search for finance and financial support or backing or investment, we didn't have a business plan. It was very, let's roll in this direction and see where it takes us. And one of the things we used to do quite regularly, so every 6-12 months, we'd go away, we'd go and sit in a hotel foyer, get some coffees, we'd have the marker pens out and just brain dump, just do a blue skies brain dump and go, right, okay, that's quite a good idea. That's quite a good idea. Right. That's the plan for the next 6 months, and sort of roll with it. That's how we did it. And it, as I say, there wasn't any big master plan, particularly in the early, you know, first, I don't know, 7-8 years, no real master plan. It was just, let's get this. And it goes back, I suppose it goes back to the success thing we were talking about. You know, if we can sell more advertising, we can build the site bigger, and we can take on another member of staff, that's great. And we'll sell some more advertising, and, you know, maybe we'll take on an extra member of staff that gives us a bit more flexibility to do something else. And we rolled like that.
Do you think, I mean, is that almost an unconscious competency in a lot of entrepreneurs, in that they don't know any better, so they just do it? Because if they did know, they would stop, or they wouldn't keep going.
I think sometimes, so the ignorance is bliss thing, I think is fantastic, because you haven't got that restriction of somebody going, shouldn't be doing that, because you don't know, you haven't got anybody there going, you shouldn't be doing that, so you do it anyway, you know, and then you go, oh, that wasn't a very good idea, I won't do that again. And, you know, we could, I mean, looking back at the whole business journey, there's obviously lots of things we could have done differently and done better. I don't think there was any, I think there was probably one opportunity, I think, or maybe 2 opportunities we missed, but we didn't do too badly.
What was your typical sort of decision making? I mean, are you fired off the cuff and let's give it a whirl, or is it I need to sleep on this type chap? I mean, what would be on a biggish decision? What do you go with?
I always advise people, go with your gut after you've done your research. So not just like, you know, firing off straight away, but if your gut feeling is, you know, this is the right route to go, and then you sort of, you know, you have a bit of a poke around, and let's call it research. It was not as deep as that. You'll maybe do a quick SWOT analysis of it, or whatever it might be, and you know, you go, I've got this idea, chuck it around a bit, maybe ask a few people, what about that? Have a look at what the market are doing, and they go, yeah, let's go for it. And I say it to clients, and I say it on podcasts a lot, JFDI, jump off the cliff, the parachute will open in some way. That's sort of my way of looking at it. And I always, naturally, I will see the positives, not the negatives anyway. So I'm very blind to all the why on earth are you doing that? Because I just didn't, either didn't see them or didn't want to look for them. So yeah, I probably more off the cuff than really thoughtful.
Do you think that's, I mean, nature or nurture? I mean, do you think people are born slightly riskier, or is it their upbringing? I mean, someone might say, well, it's okay if you fail. You're, in hindsight, you're sitting there and saying, just go and do it.
Yeah.
And
but we did. You see, the point is, we did. Nature or nurture? I think there's probably a lot of it is nature. But then it depends on the landscape you're making that decision in. So when you're starting and you've got no money, it's quite hard to make a really big off the cuff decision. But if you're successful and you've got, some money sitting in the bank, that actually, if this call is wrong, it's not going to really knacker everything. You will have a tendency and a flexibility to take more riskier decisions. So yeah, I think a lot of it is nature, because a lot of people, it just feels wrong to just be, go for it.
Yeah. It's I mean, I suppose when you're working with people, is that what it is for them? Is it the, let's call it bravery, or is it the clarity to just go for it, or is it the not knowing? Or is it the sort of got a gut feeling, too much going on right now? I mean, when businesses aren't moving forward, what do you tend to find are the biggest blockers for them?
I think sometimes it's the fear of failure, I think, stops people making decisions. It's very easy to go, ooh, what if? I had a fantastic member of staff who was really, really good, great at what he did, but was always crossing 6 or 7 bridges down. What if this happens? What if this happens? It was like, no, let's cross this first bridge first. Oh, well, what if, I don't know, let's make something up. What if it becomes so big we need to recruit some more people? Well, great. Isn't that a fantastic problem? Should we just start the project first? And you get that in people, that they will do that, and other people will just, knock down the targets as they're in front of you. And a lot of it is down to the nature of the person, and some of it is down to the landscape of making those decisions.
Did you know you were going to get to this point? I mean, did you know you were going to sort of build a business and it was going to be very successful, and you were profitably sell it and move on? I mean, some people sort of says, yeah, I know I'm going to be big, I know this is going to happen, but I just don't know how.
No. As I say, it was, particularly in the early days, it was, let's just roll with it and see where it gets to us. And, if I can buy a slightly nicer car that doesn't break down, that's great. And then the success rolls and you go, okay, well, all right, where do we go next? And where do we go next? Where do we go next? And it was just a rolling journey that, okay, let's set a bigger target. Let's try and do something different and build a brand and dominate the market. And the targets become bigger. And at no point did I sit back and think, I know this is going to happen. It was just, what's the old football cliche, you can only beat what's in front of you. So at any particular time, it was, can we generate some more revenue? Can we generate some more profit? Can we improve the product? Just pretty day-to-day stuff, but within a big picture situation as well. So we had, and this came from a consultant that came into our business, we had a BHAG on the wall. I don't know if you've come across BHAGs with. Okay, so if you read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talks about, and it's all about what makes good companies become great companies. So, and it takes some real examples, most of them American, but it's almost like if you take Sainsbury's and Tesco's from 15 years ago, they were probably about the same. What made Tesco's go ballistic and Sainsbury's stay, it's that, oh, good's great. And he came up with the theory of a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. So it's like, pick something that is so ridiculously big as a target, and you set that as your North Star, and off you go. And I say this consultant came in to see us, and he introduced me to that concept. And we had a BHAG of being the world's leading supplier of online bingo players. Okay, so that's the world. So being the world's number one of anything is obviously going to be huge. The time he wrote it, there were 5 of us in an office above a sandwich shop in North Leeds. So that's, to be the world's number one of anything from a sandwich shop, from above, not in the sandwich shop, above a sandwich shop, is, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal. So that was the goal, but at no point within that journey was there any, oh, we're definitely going to do it. It was just, take the next step, take the next step, take the next step, see where we get.
It almost feeds nicely back into, that sort of being a problem solver, being a solution provider, right? It's because when we give ourselves these big, hairy, audacious goals, then the brain goes, I must solve this. And you're like, okay, go for it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. And what it did was, and I said, I'm a sort of shiny new object person. And in the end, I was told quite categorically by, again, another consultant who came into the business, having sort of done a project with the team, to just get out of the way and stop bringing these new exciting ideas in. Just let us get on with what we're trying to do. But what it allowed us to do was, anytime, we had it on the wall in the meeting room, anytime we were discussing ideas, it was constantly, does this contribute to the BHAG? Does this take us towards where we're trying to get to? And I was guilty, as everybody, of having fantastic ideas that didn't. And the danger is when you do that, if you're the boss, obviously the team say, yes, yes, sir, you're the boss, even though they're sitting there going, bloody hell, another one of these stupid ideas. Mm. And yeah, until I was told, just keep your stupid ideas to yourself. And in fact, what I ended up doing on the recommendation of this consultant was setting up a separate company to sort of have a pot to put my stupid new ideas in.
You were being managed.
Absolutely. I was tired. The project he did with the team, I've done with a couple of clients, and it's fantastic. And I would recommend anybody who's listening to do this. He came into our business and sort of did a Q&A individually with all the team. So, what's good about working here? What's bad about working here? What are the issues? What ideas have you got? All that sort of stuff. And then he rolled it back to me. So obviously not verbatim, and it wasn't he said, she said, it was sort of themes. And one of the themes was, will you tell Phil to stop bringing these new ideas in and leave us alone? And at the time, by that time, I had a number 2 in place, and he was consistently saying to me, Phil, leave me alone. Let me run the business. If there's any problems, I'll let you know. Just go and sit by your pool in Spain. And that's the situation we got to. So anybody, I've done this to a couple of clients, this project where I've spoken to the team and sort of taken it back theme-wise to the boss. And it's a brilliant exercise. It is absolutely fantastic. And one of them said to me, he says, it's the best thing he's ever done in his business. And he's been running his business for 15 years.
Isn't it mad?
Sorry, we're going off on a tangent there, but
no,
yeah.
Look, I mean, it's fascinating, right? Because although everyone, you perceive, especially the boss perceives, we're all sitting down here having this nice open conversation. Yeah, that's fine, except 3/4 of the room feel like if they open their mouth in the wrong way, the hammer will fall. So that's not exactly.
I was never the sort of person that would do that. But what you don't realize as the boss is at the back of their mind, all the time, however nice you are to them, however open you are, and I was as open and gave them as many opportunities as I could. The back of their mind is always, this is the bloke who could sack me at any point. I wasn't going to, and I didn't, but I didn't. I never sort of realized that, because I was just like, yeah, let's all get on with it. And again, this sort of feeds into another point, which is, as you grow your business, you will struggle to understand why people aren't as excited and enthused and in love with your business as you are. But it's because it's your business. They're just employed. But why aren't you why don't you work on a Saturday and a Sunday on this? Not you obviously don't sit down on a Monday morning and say that to them, but that conceptually, why aren't you as 100% committed to this as I am? And it's really hard to understand that as you grow a business that people aren't just by and there's no fault of theirs, and it's a natural thing.
I mean, how do you share that energy in a business? As you say, it's if you're not getting a share of the profits or you're sitting at the top table, it is very hard to sort of get everyone as enthused or sort of directional. But
yeah,
I mean, is that down to goals? Is that down to communication, clarity? What is it?
It's as you grow a business, your skill set has to change. When you grow a business, you're the salesperson, you're the after sales team, you're the supply chain, you're the delivery, you're everything. So you bring a team in, and what you have to do, I think, is you have to give them clear targets. You have to give them the freedom to do their job well. You have to give them the facilities to do them well, and that includes things like training and support. And they have to buy into the vision. Now, as I said, they're never going to be in love with your business as much as you are. But if you give them stimulating and motivating work to do, and you value them, and you allow them to express themselves as much as you can, I think you will then have a team that will fight alongside you. I think it's when they don't feel valued and they just feel they're just sort of cogs in a machine, that I think that's where you lose the motivation, and they turn up on a Monday morning and they finish on a Friday because that's what they do as a job. Whereas if you've got a motivated, inspired team, they will go the extra mile.
Do you think staff and employees will always be one of the main, maybe not the biggest, but the main assets of any business? Is that always a fundamental part?
I think a lot depends on the business, and a lot depends on the business owner. I think there are a lot of jobs out there that are just functions. And if you read the book The E-Myth, that talks a lot about putting processes in place that are repeatable, and actually then staff do become cogs in a machine. So I think those sort of issues do probably come up as businesses get bigger. But yeah, in most instances, if you've got, I think anything sort of sub 20 staff, your biggest asset will be your staff. And then it's how you deal with them, how you treat them. Just simple basics like, offering them training, offer them decent facilities to work in, giving them flexibility, giving them feedback. Feedback is one of the hugest things that I think a lot of business owners don't do. And feedback doesn't necessarily need to be negative. Feedback can be positive as well. One of the things I came across, I'm a great sort of reader and listener and learner, and I came across something called Manager Tools, which is an American podcast. So once you sort of cut through the Americana, they talk about a number of key topics. And if anybody's out there listening, it's manager-tools.com. And they talk about feedback, and they have a feedback model, which goes sort of fairly structured, goes something like, hey, Pete, can I give you some feedback? And if you say, sorry, Phil, I'm busy, go, fine, I'll give you later. So, hey, Pete, can you give me some feedback? And it's, when you did this was great, this happened, carry on doing it. And that's it. And yeah, because often when you say to me, can I give you some feedback? Their immediate reaction is, oh shit, what did I do wrong? And yes, you've got to give negative feedback as well. But positive feedback works fantastically well.
It is key, isn't it? We get so problem and solution oriented that we forget that, in the world of 80-20 or 70-30 or whatever your ratio is, that actually you can't, yes, it mightn't be the biggest part of the business, but it's being grateful and appreciating what you have, and as you say, that positive feedback, right?
Yeah.
Tell me this: what are your sort of key habits? I mean, are you a big goal setter? Do you like to sit down? Are you visualization? I mean, you mentioned there, a lot of ideas coming through as well. I mean, how do you typically channel that? How do you make it hit the tarmac?
Yeah, I'm an ideas person, and I think what I tend to do, and one of the things I learned again from learning from a book most people have probably heard of, 7 Habits of Successful People by Stephen Covey, was time management. So urgency versus importance. And I'm still a pen and paper person. So as I'm going around, I'll sort of chuck ideas on bits of paper. And then sort of once a week, I'll try and prioritize them. And I've built my own sort of bastardized system of Covey's system, which again is on the website. So have a look. And then put things in priority order and go, right, okay, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that. And though, some of those are the ideas I've had, and some of it is just things I know I've got to do. So is it goal setting? I think more important to me than goal setting is prioritization, which obviously then will feed into, if you've set goals, then your prioritization will feed into goals. And particularly now, obviously, I'm in a sort of slightly odd situation where what I'm doing is pretty much sort of part-time and quite flexible. So there's no sort of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 structure. So it's easy to end up just doing things I enjoy doing, which probably aren't as important as things I have to do, like fix that light bulb or mend the garden shed or whatever it might be that I'm told to do.
Are you somebody that needs to be kept busy? Are you best when you're sort of 150% or 50%? There's no halfway ground.
Absolutely. I like to think, right, okay, what am I doing today? I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. Because I find it quite easy just to, particularly nowadays, even sort of sit on social media and just to lose an hour doing absolutely nothing. So yeah, I think I have to be doing stuff.
What's on the bucket list for you? I mean, what's out there that you're happy to share, of course, that it's going to happen, or it's something you would really sort of tickle your fancy?
The one thing I've always had, it's more of an itch to scratch than a bucket list. As I said, our business happened totally by accident. We were lucky to be in the right place at the right time. We were in a growing market, and it sort of all happened. So I've got this sort of itch or question that always says, were you just a one-trick pony? Did you just get lucky? And off the back of that, I've always fancied maybe trying to do a turnaround on a business just to see if I could do it. Now, what that business is, where it is, what market it's in, I don't know. And then I talked to somebody about this recently, and they said, well, why? Why do you need to scratch that itch? You've done it. Because you look at, I know they're sort of huge business icons, but you look at people like Peter Jones and I know Alan Sugar and people like that, and you think, well, when is enough enough? I'm not going to go and buy a Caribbean island or a yacht or anything like that. So I don't need to do it. So then the question is, well, why do you need to scratch that itch, and who are you proving it to? Probably only myself. So that possibly is on the bucket list, but it's not. Sorry, it's more an itch to scratch than a bucket list that I have to do it. And obviously the other bucket list is to see Leeds in Europe again, because I've done that. I have done that before. I've been to Milan, I've been to Valencia to see Leeds, but yeah, let's see them back in Europe again.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, that transfer, and it's super interesting, right? Because I suppose you come out of a business when you don't have to do anything. And even you might say, well, I want to do this, but then it's understanding, I suppose for me, I'm slightly biased at, getting to hear what people's passions are. You're just saying, yeah, I could do that. And, what I want to do, but actually what I would love to do. And it's the different energy in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm curious for you, sort of, almost that sort of gear change, in that moment of you're in neutral, you're speeding along rapidly, but you're in neutral because you've gone from I have to go to work, or we have to do this to sell the business, or we have to do this to grow, we have to do this, to suddenly going, I don't have to do anything.
It's fascinating actually, because you read all these business books and they talk about startup and they talk about growth and they talk about exit, and they don't do the chapter afterwards, which is, what the fuck do you do after you sold your business? And I've spoken to a couple of people who are fortunately in a similar situation, and it's like, when you meet people, you go, what job do you do? And it's the assumption is that they've got a job to go to, and 9 to 5, whatever it might be. And then I talked earlier about Maslow's hierarchy driving you. So there's the obligation to have a job because you're supposed to have a job, and there's the obligation to have a job for economic reasons and supporting your family and all that sort of stuff. And when both of those sort of things disappear, then fantastic, you can do whatever you want. And then it's, well, what do I want to do? So I've been doing, I've done quite a few different things. I'm doing this business sounding boarding, but I've also done a lot of mentoring in schools as well, because I find that hugely satisfying. So we talked about my career earlier, and I do a presentation that I've done quite regularly to sixth forms in and around the Leeds area, all about careers and CVs and jobs, and the fact that my career had gone all over the place. And don't worry when a teacher says to you at 16, what do you want to do? Because it's, in essence, it's a stupid question. And then I've done some work with Prince's Trust, and I've done some work with an organisation called Career Ready. So we do one-on-one mentoring, and I get a lot out of that. But I don't know whether we're still I'm too young to retire properly and go and play golf, and I don't play golf anyway. There's still that thing in you that's should I have a job? Should I be doing something? And almost a guilt complex to say, well, I can't just do nothing. So somebody says to you, oh, what do you do? Nothing.
Yeah, but it's that whole thing, isn't it? It's taken a lot to allow me to do nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. As I said earlier, I'm sitting in Spain in the middle of October because I can, and that's great. But there is, maybe we're preconditioned to still work.
It's the Japanese, isn't it? It's the Japanese, and there's one other culture that do that. It's like you basically, you always work. You always have a task, or you have a role to play in society or whatever else. It may change through time, but there's always a sort of workplace as such. I mean, do you believe you have an overall calling or a purpose in life, do you think, or where do you sit on that?
I don't think so. Like I say, I enjoy the mentoring I do in schools. I actually enjoy the business sounding board stuff I'm doing as well. I'm the sort of person that if I met you and we're sat on a train or a plane or sat by the pool, and I'd say, what game are you in? And the bloke next to me goes, oh, we make pencils. Most people are going, oh, bloody hell. I'd go, that's fantastic. That's really interesting. Tell me, how do you get into that? How does that market work? How does the system work? Blah, 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 blah. So people coming to me looking for my support as a business sounding board, I'm like, great, yeah, come on, bring it on. I enjoy doing it. I wouldn't call it a calling, but I enjoy doing it. But no, I don't think I have got a calling.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, where were you? Where are you in your flow state? I mean, if we want to see the best of Phil, I mean, are you on a stage? Are you sitting in a conference room? Are you one-to-one? I mean, where do you think you shine? Where can people see the best of you?
That's a really good question, because I was asked this. I was talking to somebody about this on a previous podcast, because they were talking about networking. They in their podcast they ask all the guests a question about a networking tip. And I said, I actually hate networking, all that sort of drinking lukewarm coffee in hotel receptions and stuff. And what I'd always prefer to do is be at a conference talking to 40, 50, 60, 100 people, whatever it might be. And yeah, on a simplistic level, I enjoy that because I'm in effect introducing myself to 50, 60, 70 people all in one go, which is great. And you don't have to do that sort of small talk networking type stuff. So I think, I think if the question was, where would you find me best? Probably performing on stage. Obviously not as an actor or anything like that. Although I was in a school play that we eventually got put on at Leeds City Varieties, which is one of the big theatres in Leeds. Oh, wow. So I have trod the boards, as they say.
What was your part?
Oh, I was I can't remember what it's called. I was a prison officer, and we had to chase some escaped convict around. We ended up running up and down the aisles in the City Varieties. It was a long time ago.
Well, now that you're semi-retired, or you're testing retirement, maybe the boards are calling again. You know?
Yeah. I've got a friend actually who's into Amdram, but I'm not tempted to ask him yet.
Yeah, maybe take up golf first. You know, it's like
No, I've done that before. I'm dreadful at golf.
And overall, I mean, whether it's mentoring or business and all, what generally frustrates you? What sort of gets you? You know, that sort of really you don't want to shake people or say, you know, why?
I think the biggest frustration is probably negativity. Can't do that. Or we're not going to try that. I don't want to do that. I can't do that. Of course you can do it. Yeah, if you change can't to won't, that's what they're really saying. Because I don't think people can't do things. I think won't is a different word. And it's probably what they're saying, or I don't want to. And that, I think that frustrates me, because there are lots and lots of opportunities out there that perhaps people miss or just don't. Sometimes they don't want to take the opportunity for various reasons. You know, I'm always very, very much the, go out and go for it. And if you don't get there, so what? Rather than people going, well, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. That's not true.
Are you good at listening to yourself? Do you know when you're really into something, or does it take you to sort of fail at it or things not to happen to get a really good indication of what you like or don't like?
I think listening to myself is quite that's an interesting one, because often I'll, being in I've done quite a lot of podcasts now and talking to clients and things, I'll say stuff and I'll sort of think back and go, would I listen to that advice, or would I do that? And most of the time I think, I think I would. Because I don't think it's right if you're telling people to do stuff. And I used to do this with my team. I would never ask them to do something I wouldn't have done. And I don't think legitimately you can do that.
What are you capable of, Phil?
Everything and anything. I don't know. It depends what it is. Bring it on. Let's have a go.
Is that always the attitude? Come and just give it a whirl, give it a go, and
absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
You know, and
somebody said to me the other day, and again, one of those sort of motivational things. When was the last time you did something for the first time? And I think that's a great line. I'm as guilty as anybody else of not doing new stuff. But I think that's just a really interesting way of looking at things, because it's very easy just to do stuff you're happy with and comfortable with and within your own sort of safety net.
Yeah. But it's true, isn't it? I mean, do you think it's also an age thing that people come to a point, whether it's maturity or experience or whatever, when they say, actually, do you know what? I don't have to do what anyone else says. That actually, whilst the buck stops at me, I'm also happy to accept that I don't need to call on others, or I don't need to be beholden to others. Is that a maturity thing, do you think, or?
I think so. I think there is at one level there is that, sort of a school kids standing next to each other going, go on, I dare you, and then they do it. And so when you're older, go on, you dare you. I'm not going to do that. But I think it's still good to have a little bit of that devil may care in you as well. Because who wants to sit around doing nothing?
Do you think there's ever a book or a podcast show, or there's more in there for you, do you think?
The book is something that keeps coming up. People keep saying, "Oh, you should write a book. I've written a book. You should write a book. You should write a book." And I think the book would, I think on one hand, the book is either the story of our business journey, which I think, obviously having just done it, I think, well, yeah, we just sort of did stuff and it happened and we sold the business. But actually, the more I tell people the story, the more people go, wow, that's, and you realize actually that sort of startup all the way to sale is the dream, for a lot of people. So there is a temptation to write that as a book. But as I say, it's like, who the hell's going to be interested in reading that? And on the other hand, I then say, okay, if I'm going to write a book, I might as well write something that's useful, and write a business book. I know it's 20 great thoughts of Phil Fraser. Oh, God, is anybody going to really read that? They're not going to be anything unique to that anybody else hasn't said. Or the other book I think that's in me, I love reading sort of trash thrillers, sort of Joe Nesbo and David Baldacci and people like that. I think, I could write one of them, which is always the sign of something that's brilliant, because you go, oh, this must be really easy to write a book like that. So I'll maybe steer clear of that, because that will probably be crap.
What is a bit of a guilty pleasure for you then? What's, apart from these thrillers and
that probably is. I mean, my guilty pleasure is sitting by the pool reading a trashy thriller. So, I'm actually looking at 3 shelves full of books. I've read about half of them. So Peter James or something like that. That's probably just being lazy. Just sitting by the pool being lazy is probably my guilty pleasure.
Just to recharge. Is it a recharge, do you think, or is it?
Well, sometimes, and the thing is, sometimes it'll be, it's a recharge, but often I also read a lot of business books as well. Go on holiday, take a couple of business books with, and then you come back full of ideas and think, oh, that was quite good. I like the way you did that. I like the way you did that. So it's just sort of like a learning in there as well. So yeah, they're probably my 2 guilty pleasures, I think.
In retrospect now, what advice would you have given to yourself when you were in business?
That's a good question. I think one of the things we didn't do, and this is probably a bit more strategic advice rather than sort of business to business advice. One of the things we didn't do, we grew the whole business organically. So we didn't do anything by acquisition. And actually, since we sold the business, I've done a lot of sort of reading about sort of M&A and sort of buy and build strategies and stuff like that. And I think that's probably one opportunity we possibly could have grown quicker doing. But I think from a business point of view, starting out, I don't think it was anything. I don't think it was anything we did particularly badly. I think one of the issues we had was some advice I got sort of later in the business journey, and sort of having had it and then read around it. I don't know if you've come across the concept of the brilliant jerk. Basically, somebody who's in your business team who's good at their job, but within the greater team is really, really bad. So in simple terms, it's somebody who pisses people off, or is the one who always pisses on brilliant ideas. Oh, we've done that before. Oh, that's going to be too hard to do. Oh, no, I don't think that's a good idea. That actually, yes, they're doing their job and they're doing it to whatever standard you want them to do their job, but actually the bigger picture stuff is negative. And that's possibly something I would have taken on board earlier, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's always interesting, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned a couple of books there, but I mean, what sort of top of your reading list for people that, saying if you're in business and going through this, what should they be reading?
2 books I always recommend to everybody, and I've mentioned them both already. One is 7 Habits by Stephen Covey, and the other is Good to Great by Jim Collins. Good to Great had a big impact on the business because of the concept of the BHAG was brought in via that. And it's a really, really interesting book. 7 Habits of Successful Business People by Stephen Covey. I have read probably 5 or 6 times now. I've got the audio book of it as well. I've listened to that a couple of times. I remember this, I can't remember who actually introduced me to it, but the second time I read it, so I read it, sort of put it down and left it. And then I read it again 2 or 3 years later. And whilst I was reading it, I realized I'd started doing some of the things in there. I started going, oh, I do that. And I realized I'd sort of taken these tips on board without noticing it. But by rereading it, you're obviously reading it in at a different point on your business journey. So the relevant bits ring different relevant bells. So, if you read a book when when you're 2 years into your business journey, and then you read the same book again 4 years into your business journey, different things become relevant and you can apply them to different scenarios. So those would be they're the 2 books I would recommend to anybody.
It's always, it's interesting to see the different reading that we have. So that's cool. So tell us, if you were to try and then describe your fire in the belly full in 1 or 2 words, what would they be?
In 1 or 2 words? Go for it.
Great. Love that. Very simple.
Or JFDI.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know what that is, just go Google it, Yeah, no, that's very true. So if people want to track you down, hunt you down, really learn more, find out more, I believe your main website is philfraser.co.uk, if I'm correct in saying that.
That's right. Yeah. philfraser.co.uk. All my contact details are on there. There's quite a few articles about some of the stuff we've talked about today. There's also previous podcasts and webinars that I've been on. Don't go to philfraser.com because that is a medieval reenactment costume company. So if you see sort of pictures of people like Robin Hood and bows and arrows and things like that, you're on the wrong website. But I'm also on LinkedIn probably every day. So come and connect with me on LinkedIn, and quite happy to talk to anybody who's a business owner about any aspect of their business.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, who do you serve best? Is business owners, those that are in growing and sort of entrepreneurial side?
It's funny actually. When I sort of started doing this, I tried to draw a customer avatar, and actually what I've worked out is it's business owners who want to get to the next stage, whatever that next stage might be. And there might be multiple aspects to that next stage. Now, that next stage might be commercial, it might be emotional, it might be strategic, but it's almost self-selecting, because if you're happy in your business and it's sort of ticking along and you're quite happy where you are, and you aren't open to change or to be prodded and poked and questioned, then you're not right for me. But if you're at a point, you go, right, I want to get to the next stage, whatever the next stage might be, and it might be from 1 employee to 2. It's more likely to be, and I find it's sort of between sort of 8 employees to 20 is sort of my sweet spot, and that usually correlates with a turnover between 500, 600 grand to about 4 or 5 million. That's sort of sweet spot for the type of business that I'm probably best helping. So if there's any business owners who fall into that sweet spot, we're probably perfect partners.
I mean, that's interesting, because that's typically, I know some of the banks and all would define that of moving from small business to medium business or medium to large, isn't it? That it's the transition side, right? To that sort of growing pain of how do we be something we've never been before.
And this is the step change I'm talking about. It's that, and somebody used the phrase recently, what got you here won't get you there. And that's often the case in business. If you've got, let's say you've got a team of 4, there's you and a team of 4 people, that there will be a certain capacity limit you get to, whether that be a product capacity, whether it be a profit capacity, whether it be a turnover capacity. So when you've got from, you know, £100,000 to £500,000, you might go, okay, I cannot get any further than this without making a step change. Or, you know, 500,000 to 1 million, million to 1.3, 1.3 to 300, you know, 3 million, yeah, whatever the step changes are. And yes, it might be a change from growth to scaling. And there is the difference between growing and scaling a business. They're sort of slightly two separate. I look at them as sort of vertical and horizontal. So growing sort of goes that direction, whereas scaling sort of goes that direction. So yeah, that's probably that sort of size point that I described is probably where all the pain points fall with that switch between growth and scale. And I think after that, after sort of 4 or 5 million, I think you're into different problems. And my business never got that big, so it'd be quite hard for me to advise, or at least feel confident dealing with somebody who's dealing with a business much bigger than mine ever was. I think I'd probably feel a bit of a fraud doing that. Although, having said that, you know, the problems are all still the same. It's marketing or strategy or sales or cash flow or finance or usually staff.
It's just bigger, right? Same problem, just different
Same
size.
problems, just a different zero on the end.
Yeah, and after a while, the zeros sort of blend into each other after a while too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty bizarre. Is there a final message you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a lot today. I think the final message is probably actually there is one, and again I picked this, and I keep saying the same things. I picked this up somewhere else, and I do a lot of listening and reading, and it was all about opportunities and the fact that people go, oh, I'm too scared to do that. And there were three concepts to this. One was, whatever the problem is, you're not alone, particularly in business. There's always somebody who's going to be able to advise you. So that's number one. But the next two were really, I thought were great. Or ask yourself two questions. Number one, what's the worst that could happen? And number two, what's the best that could happen? And what you'll find is the imbalance between the best that could happen versus the worst that could happen is so big in a positive way that there's no reason why you wouldn't do it.
If you can, you must.
And it's even something as simple as I'm going to send an email to, I don't know, the CEO of a big company. What's the worst that could happen? He ignores it. What's the best that could happen? You might get a contract out of it. You know, how big is that imbalance that, you know?
It's proportionate, isn't it? Right? You know, because why is it? There's certain things, and I mean, I've sort of young kids, and you know, when they're learning to walk and all that, they don't sort of go, tried it a couple of times, wasn't really for me, you know. But that's because the experience of what you see around you is everyone else is walking, so therefore, you know, it's you know, I will keep trying and trying again, you know. As you say, it's whether it's reaching out to the CEO or asking somebody. They might say no, they might say nothing. Oh God, heaven forbid, they might say yes, you know, and
absolutely.
What then? Go and kiss a couple of frogs and see what happens, right?
Yeah. And it is. It's a lot of it is frog kissing.
That's great. Phil, that's been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing today. It's been great to hear about your passions and really what's going on. I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much for having me on. Oh, there you go. You just saw my wife just wander past. So she's the other half of the business.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, I love it. That's what it's all about, right? You know, you get to enjoy these things now. That's what it's all about.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Cheers. Bye.